sheet. Sixth Sense was about the scariest I could go. Did you ever see The Village? So what's your favorite?
Ooh.
Man,
Hey, welcome back to Music Student 101, everybody.
welcome back.
I am Jeremy Burns.
I'm Matthew Scott Phillips.
And we decided we'd kind of freak everybody out today and bring you in on something a little creepy here.
No, you did not hit the Webern Music Podcast by accident. We promise.
We're going to talk about this piece in just a little bit, but we have some cool news today, Matt.
Good.
By the time this episode drops, we'll be on track to have surpassed the 1 million download.
1 million downloads.
Yeah.
That's wonderful and terrifying.
Isn't it, though? So 6 years in.
6 years in. We have been doing this for 6 years.
110 episodes plus those bonus episodes when we did the COVID thing.
Yeah, plus the whole COVID fiasco was one of those years, and yeah.
But enough about us.
Enough about us. We'll talk about us all day.
Today, our students become the teachers.
Indeed, because we have listener compositions today.
Mm-hmm. We will act as a mere vessel to bring you their music.
Indeed.
And maybe explain a little bit about what's going on within
Indeed.
these pieces.
Indeed.
Little PSA.
Okay.
I think you should consider wearing some really good headphones
I think so too.
if you're listening to this.
Yes.
You know, I understand that a lot of these newer headphones are just as good, if not better, than ear-covering headphones. You know,
That's what they say. I'm kind of an old man purist, I guess.
we are wearing our Sony MD5706 industry standard for the past 4 decades or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Hey, but as long as you can really kind of be able to zoom in on the music and really kind of hear some of the subtle things going on,
Right.
and some of the stereo effects, you can really
Right.
pick up better with some
Right.
good headphones.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that. Another thing about this podcast or the show, we're featuring listener compositions
Yes.
from many people who listen to the show and have been bold enough to send us their material.
Bold and courageous enough to send us their stuff.
So first off, we applaud them for that.
Indeed.
We will applaud good production value, but we don't require it.
Right.
We will applaud complex songwriting, and
But we don't require
textures,
it.
But we don't require it. Exactly. We want to hear what's going on in the minds of our fellow musicians.
Indeed.
We want to see what they're coming up with. And of course, we're not going to do any reviews or listener mails or anything like that. And then some of these people are Patreon patrons anyway, so we can give them a shout out as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Because this is all about our listeners today.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm. So what we heard when we came in, you might recognize the rhythms and the contour, but you may find it to be in a stranger place than what you remember as a child or whenever you heard Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Yeah.
This is called Creepy, Creepy Little Star.
Creepy, creepy little star.
This is a listener named Treybien.
Treybien.
We met a little while ago. Trey is from Mesquite, Texas.
Okay.
We had met him on episode 99.
Right.
That was the one about creativity during difficult times.
Right. Yes.
And I want to come back to that episode later on, so remind me. At that point, Trey had just joined us on Patreon. And here's another fun fact about Trey. Do you remember that episode where I said, hey, y'all, stay on me about those mugs?
Yes.
2 days after that release, Trey followed
Trey
up.
was staying on you about the mugs.
He said he sent me something saying, hey, Burnsy, how about that mug? Or something to that effect. And yes, Trey now has his mug, and hopefully he's sipping from it as we speak.
Let's hope so.
And also, since we last spoke, Trey is now the proud father of 2 awesome twins.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah. So he's been very busy keeping up with them.
Oh, yes.
But for laughs, he decided to send me this email a little while ago with this little thing he did. And he really wants to credit his 10-year-old daughter, Alex, for this creepy little jewel.
Okay.
Matt, what's Trey got to say about...
So Trey says, the composition was by my daughter, Alex, at age 10. She's 11 now, and just about to start recorder lessons in music at school. Fun times. Mm-hmm. And she might become a bass player. Oh. Well, how about that?
Now, we'll be just as happy if she does the recording thing.
We will. But just as an aside, have we ever mentioned, Jeremy,
Not recently.
that we both happen to be bass players ourselves?
We are both bassists. Providing the foundation.
Right. So Trey continues. She selected orchestra as her second choice elective for entering middle school next year. Wonderful. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. I'm actually hoping she gets her first choice elective, theater. She really loves acting. But in case there is no room in theater class, she's already been accepted into orchestra to play double bass. Oh, the double bass. Mm-hmm. Oh, the great double bass. It came about because my daughter Alex learned Twinkle Twinkle Little Star at 2 different times and in 2 different keys. I think I taught her to play it in C major, and then she later learned it in F major. Anyway, at some point she started playing it with the same fingering as you would use to play it in C major, but she had her finger set in the wrong position, so of course it sounded weird. So I told her she was playing it in a different mode than is standard, and she kind of liked it. So if she played in F with finger positions of C, the big thing would be the raised 4 was what she would have inadvertently done, right?
She would be in Lydian mode, right?
She would be in Lydian mode, yeah. Let's see, where was I now? Then she tried each of the modes using all white keys until she hit on the one she liked best. I already like this kid.
Yeah.
Turns out that was A minor. I want to say she also liked it in Phrygian. But Aeolian won out. When we recorded this, she played the melody and instructed me to play dramatic notes on her signal. Thinking back, I think we did 2 takes, and the one that I sent is the one where I took more artistic liberty. I think we did a second take where I just stuck to banging away at low A note. So I'm not certain exactly what chords I'm playing in the recording I sent. As of the conversation, I think it arose because of the creepy music, but I don't remember for sure.
And what he's talking about is the background chatter. It's kind of interesting because we're hearing this piano piece. He's recording them in his living room, I assume.
Right, yeah.
Or some social family room.
Yes.
And I don't know he didn't mention who that was talking. I might assume a wife or an older female.
Right, yeah.
Compared to the twins and the 10-year-old. Obviously, Alex has her hands full.
Right.
And I just think it's kind of... Yeah, in an ideal world, you wouldn't send that kind of background stuff in a recording, but to me, I think it's just kind of funny. And not to mention, they're playing creepy music, and I think that's inspiring.
It makes it a kind of sound art installation a little bit, doesn't it?
I was looking for the word. I remember you engaging in stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot
music concrète.
What do you say?
Music concrète.
See, Alex, that's what you were doing. You genius. But I just thought it was kind of funny because it inspired the conversation, and it adds a strange element. It kind of puts you outside of the music and introduces another character.
Yeah, absolutely, which is fascinating.
And they start talking about the village.
You're right.
Have you seen The Village, Matt?
No, I'm not a big horror person.
Me neither. I saw The Happening by M. Night Shyamalan. It was kind of crazy at times and kind of silly at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Anyways, that's the backstory. So really, and I kind of get a kick out of thinking about Alex playing the notes and then with her raising her hand and dropping it whenever he's ready to. How is she signaling him? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't that just funny?
So if I were to play Twinkle Twinkle in Aeolian.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's the basic idea. And there is precedent for this kind of thing. Mahler's First Symphony very famously has a minor key version of Frere Jacques.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, cool, huh?
Are you dying, Brother John?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So there's precedent for that kind of thing. Can I tell you what I like about it?
Sure.
Is forget precedent. Right. So if Alex had been some stuffy old music theorist who had decided to play Twinkle Twinkle in A Aeolian, she would have done it in a very sort of conventional. Kind of thing, right? Yeah, and it wouldn't have been. Yeah, which is neat. It's sad, but there is so much more going on in this, right? Because Alex is not a stuffy old theorist, and we have created a musical installation that is far more complex than that. There's a lot of dissonance in this.
Yes.
There's a lot of dissonance.
Yes.
It almost reminds me of mid-20th century sort of avant-garde a little bit.
Yeah, there's a kind of, the rhythm is not on any kind of metronome.
Right.
And it kind of adds a dramatic effect when she kind of dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if those are really A's. Maybe they're out of tune, or maybe they're.
I think what I came up with was an A and an E, like a 1 and a 5.
Or perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe that.
But it might have just been 2 octaves of an A. I might have been having an overactive imagination because of it being in such a low register. That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds closer.
Yeah, that was A and then E and then A an octave up.
Foreboding.
Foreboding indeed.
Well, shall we give it one more listen now?
Let's please do.
While we yap. Okay, here we go. Now, this is Creepy, Creepy Little Star.
Creepy, Creepy Little Star.
By Treybien.
By Treybien and his daughter Alex.
And his daughter, 10-year-old at the time, now 11. Happy birthday, Alex. Here we go.
Beautiful. Those pauses are beautiful.
Yeah. It's just kind of tension building.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that a 10-year-old is a little more attracted to the morose, Yeah. It makes me think she's just a more...
she's just deep.
More of a real person.
Yeah, more of a real person.
Maybe ahead of her time, you know what I mean? Ahead of her time.
Halloween or Freddy Krueger, any of that stuff. I don't mind like suspense movies, but not usually just like slash.
And it was creepy enough to inspire conversation about creepy things from other people in the room.
Sixth Sense was about the scariest I can go. Did you ever
That's
see,
nice.
The Village?
The conversation kind of brings you away from the music, and then the music kind of comes back in, Kind
Yeah.
of brings itself back in.
Yeah. I could have swore I heard like a G or a G sharp.
Oh, you might
sometimes,
have.
or even.
Or a 9 chord of some kind, maybe. There's
Yeah, like.
There was some muddiness for sure.
There's some muddiness in there, yeah. Absolutely. Which makes it so, that's so inspiring, and I love the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought you
I
would.
would do that. You could record conversations and just have them playing over your music. And then, it opens up all these doors. Well, how is the music going to fit the content of the conversation and vice versa? So you could do so much artful things with that and have people, really attract people's attention. That is a great idea.
Isn't that?
If Alex ever becomes a composer, she should, maybe think about
Becoming a composer.
becoming a composer. And then once she's a composer, think about, adding just sort of recorded conversations like that.
She is clearly familiar with the concept of theme and variations.
Absolutely.
Which is a very big part of being a composer.
Absolutely.
And if you can't think of any melodies right off the bat of your own, then just take something that's been done and mess around with it, play with it.
Well, that's what composers do. Nothing new is under the sun, really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on.
Okay.
Let's move on. Thank you again, Treybien.
Thank you, Trey, and thank you, Alex. That was great.
Job well done. That was a lot of fun. Fun way to start the episode with
Indeed,
some creepy
indeed.
stuff. It's just going to get a little bit lighter from here. To a degree.
To a degree.
Okay. Now we have our friend Gerald P. David.
Gerald P. David.
We first met Gerald on episode 104, Studio Effects Part 1.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
We were thanking him for a PayPal donation. Gerald is a professional photographer out of Canada. He mainly plays guitar, but is also a multi-instrumentalist, you would say.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, he knows the keys.
Right.
We're going to find that out.
Right.
Gerald was quite taken with the song US1 by one of our listener composers, Nancy Mitchell.
Ah, how about that?
That was featured in episode 70, our first ever listener compositions episode.
Right.
So coming back full circle here. And now they are in touch and collaborating to build on it. How cool is that?
That's great. That's great.
Another fun fact about Gerald, he has coined the phrase digressertation. Matt, would you like to define this in the words of Jerry?
I will define it in the words of Jerry. And I feel that. I mean, having written a digressertation and having to have defended it. Yeah, okay. So Gerald says, digressertation, a long, entertaining conversation on a particular subject that is not the main subject, but has been led to or is distinctly related to the main subject matter. Example. Oh, here it comes. Example. Matt and Jeremy had a digressertation on the merits and nuances of using a minor plagal cadence versus an imperfect cadence to end a song. Do we recall this we have so many.
No, I think he was just coming up. He could have been actually citing an actual example because we've had so many.
It's easily possible.
Digressertation.
That sounds like something we'd talk about.
You know, Gerald, and he was kind of knocking me a little bit for this. He's a big fan of the minor plagal cadence. And seems to feel that we might not have really given it enough love.
Didn't really, gave it a short, so like,
we should indulge.
Plagal cadence in the minor key?
Yeah, well, actually, no. I'm talking like that thing where, say, you're in the key of E.
Yeah.
And then you go to 4 major and then bring it down to 4 minor and then go back to 1.
Oh, so like if you're in it, so. It is pretty.
Isn't it lovely? It's used a lot in pop music.
Yeah, oh sure.
The Beatles used it a lot. All the great ones do and did.
Yeah, oh yeah. And modal shift is one of those things that you don't talk about in theory because it seems so easy to understand. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's the easy things to understand that is the most musically rewarding. So there's this disconnect between things that happen all the time in music versus the things that we talk about all the time in theory.
And we had a listener recently asking about mode mixture. That's kind of, or a modal, what did you call it?
I would call that mode mixture. So going from an F major chord to F minor chord.
If you were in the key of C.
If you were in the key of C, yeah.
So what we're doing is we're borrowing from the minor mode, or from the minor parallel minor.
The parallel minor, yeah.
So if we were in E minor, we'd have an A minor as a 4 chord.
Yeah.
We're in E major, we use an A major as a 4 chord, but we drop that third.
Right.
And at that point, we have borrowed the minor.
We
4.
have borrowed the, what is it? We have borrowed the flat 6. You know,
the note, yeah.
Yeah, which is from the minor key to make the borrowed minor 4 chord. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Remember that this concept is talking about, it came from talking about music where your 2 modes were major and minor, right? This is classical music, your 2 modes are major and minor. Mm-hmm. Imagine borrowing from other modes, borrowing the flat 2 from Phrygian or something, and think what you could come up with,
The world is your oyster.
Indeed.
Nothing borrowed, nothing gained.
Yes.
Okay. So anyways, let's go ahead and let's give this piece a listen.
All right.
This is called Back to One.
Okay.
By Gerald David, a.k.a. Jerry.
Okay.
Some people call him Jerry. Well, maybe we'll use those interchangeably.
I understand.
And this is Gerald P. David. You can hear this. See if you can hear his favorite cadence somewhere in this piece.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Beautiful.
I think so too.
Yeah, really nice. Really nice. Really pretty.
Good quality, good recording.
Indeed.
I like it.
Good guitar playing.
I like it when you kind of hear the person's breath as they're performing a little bit.
It makes it human.
It makes it human. It kind of puts them next to you.
Yeah.
Don't take it. It's not like we noticed it that much, but with my headphones, I didn't really notice it just playing it on my phone. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, now that we've heard it, let's take a tour of the musical factory that is Gerald's mind, shall we?
And we're going to let Gerald describe his piece because he does it very well. So he says the idea is that the chord progression starts at 1 and works its way backward to 5, then back to 1. E major, tempo at 130 BPM. Some points of interest. Pedal tone, so the E bass is played throughout the main part, and then the E major 7. So the first chord move is from E to E major 7, and Gerald says, "Not sure why I like this. I know it is somewhat backwards, but technically a tendency means that it should be able to go back and forth. No, well." No, but, huge but, huge but. There is all kinds of precedent for what Gerald is doing here, for moving down the major scale to 5 and back up. When you move down from E to, it would be D sharp in this case with an E major 7. Yes, that D sharp out of context is supposed to be a tendency tone that just has to pull right back up to B. But when you hear it in this context of descending scale, yeah. We understand that just fine. Yeah. Our ears understand that just fine. We don't feel like we got short shrifted on a tendency tone. This is an idea that goes all the way back to Bach, really, and probably before that. I would not call D sharp a tendency tone in that case, perhaps.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not functioning as a tendency tone, right? You're not hearing it wanting it to pull back up to E. So can a tendency tone do that? No, but this is probably not what I would call a tendency tone taken in this context. All that to say, what you're doing is perfectly fine. Perfectly musical, perfectly fine, works perfectly well in theory. I got no problem with it.
Totally, yeah.
At all.
It's just a, what do you call it? Semantics.
It's semantics.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. He says, my work tends to revolve around body, bass, and structure, and tends to be weak on the melodic side.
Oh, you and me both, Gerald.
I don't know that you're particularly, Gerald, this is particularly more melodically weak than a whole lot of other things, I mean, there's melody and there's melody. I prefer to think of it as melodically simple, more than melodically weak. I mean, to me, E moving to D sharp implies melody. To me, I mean, you don't have to do a whole bunch of other notes, necessarily.
Sure.
So there you go.
It doesn't need to be that busy.
Right.
It doesn't need to be. Some things just don't need to be that complex.
It's not the vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This was recorded on Logic 10. Background tones are harmonics on my guitar and marimba samples. My daughter played marimba in a local civic symphony, so I built her one from scratch. Very good job. Always loved the sound and overtones on the low end of a marimba. The back end is just a wraparound of the front end.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. We have a little bit of daddy-daughter kind of collaboration.
Kind of daddy-daughter music. Making
some of these things.
Kind of a theme, yeah. So Gerald has also given us a rundown of the chord progression. That starts off with an E major, no third, to an E major 7, no third, to C sharp minor first inversion. So the drone, bass, and the E. Very good theory, Gerald. Proud of you.
Yeah, so we got this E. Now this is E with a third.
Yeah.
Losing that third.
Yeah. Get that nice, pretty open sound.
So he's doing this note right here.
Yeah.
On my poorly tuned guitar. He's doing this 1, sharp 7.
There you go.
6.
Yep.
5.
Yeah.
And that's just a descending melody.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful in its simplicity. Yeah. So E major to C sharp minor, E major to E major 7 to C sharp minor to B major. And then back to E major with the third defined. So, yeah, there you have it.
So did you hear that minor plagal cadence?
Yeah. Was it in the sort of the bridge part?
Yeah, he's doing the... And then we had this...
Yeah.
A major.
A major.
A minor. Back to E.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful.
And then before we get out of here or give it the second listen, what else does Gerald have to say?
Well, he says, do I have plans for this composition? Yes, I'd like to hear some melody vocals over it. And a shout out to Nancy Mitchell. I have not forgotten US1. Sometimes it takes me a long time, but I always pull through.
He will always pull through. So
We understand.
you can't rush a good thing.
Never.
Right?
Never.
But anyways, so that's cool. We're looking forward to their collaboration.
Absolutely.
Now, let's give this a second listen, shall we?
Indeed.
So, one more time. This is Back to One by Gerald P. David.
Sharp 7. C sharp minor.
Yep.
First inversion. B.
This is kind of the main theme, right?
Right.
Now he's building the rhythm a little bit here with the guitar.
Yeah.
And we have a strings,
Is that a cello or something?
some kind of strings in the background. I like the way the marimba is working around the rhythm, kind of on the upbeats.
Yeah.
All right. Now we got a little shaker action here and a more active guitar line.
Yeah.
He's really picking up the sense of motion.
Yeah.
And I think this is the fourth repeat. Just stretching the build up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really feels like it's a good day.
Yeah.
Like I just had my bowl of Wheaties. I'm gonna go out there and conquer the world today.
I might have some music aesthetic comments about that.
All right. Okay, y'all, stand by. There's our 4. Minor 4. Back to 1.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the minor plagal
The minor
cadence.
plagal cadence.
Again. Back to the main theme.
I'm humming it at this point. That's how catchy it is.
Totally. I've been humming all these all week long. It sticks. And then we just kind of go out the way we came in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Somewhat palindromic.
Yeah.
Oh, no, complete symmetrical. Kind of a little summary of the parts here.
Yeah. He really has sold me on that minor 4 at this point.
Totally. We're going to do an episode on the minor plagal cadence and call it to Gerald P. David, wherever you are.
Wherever you are. Yeah. That's beautiful. You know, you mentioned it feels like a good day. It feels like a sunny day.
Yeah, it feels like a good start to a good day.
There is an overall happy vibe in this.
Even though it's a descending melody.
Even though it's a descending melody. So how does that happen? What creates that?
You got me, man.
Well, we can speculate.
It's in a major key.
It's in a major key, and that absolutely helps.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a descent from the tonic of that major key to the fifth, to the dominant.
Mm-hmm.
And as I have said before, the relationship between tonic and dominant cannot be overstated in music, in Western music. We feel comfortable with tonic and dominant.
Yes.
There's and what I mean is, you know, when you listen to music, it gives us the aesthetic of just knowing what's going on, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, whereas if I had, that's a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
If I had, but this tonic and dominant, and that feeling of comfort can be there even when it becomes sort of more of a structural thing. And the tonic and dominant is a structural thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving from one to the other, descending from one to the other, right? And so because we've made this into this structure, that feeling of comfort is still there. Even when we get what is, strictly speaking, a fairly dissonant chord. You know, with that E major 7. You know, if I was to throw the third in that.
Sure, yeah.
You know, it still feels okay because we still feel like we know where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Because of where we came from.
Because of where we came from, yeah. You know, so he's using that to great advantage to give that feeling of comfort, that feeling of a sunny day, where you know there's not a lot scary happening in this piece, and that minor plagal cadence when he moves from the major to the minor, yeah, he's doing the same thing. He is progressing towards melodically this time. See, Gerald, there's more in your melody than you give yourself credit for. Melodically, he's progressing chromatically down to that fifth from C sharp to C
Yes.
to B, right?
Totally
And
chromatic.
we know that. We feel that. You
All
know,
half steps.
Yeah, all half steps. We feel the descent to B that happens sort of in a macrocosm in the verse, and then in that plagal cadence in more of a micro kind of cosm. You know, all you're really doing with that minor plagal cadence is you know making us wait just a little bit more for that B that we nevertheless know is coming, right? And it's the knowing of coming that makes us feel like, wow, this is going exactly how I want to. I feel good about this. This is a good vibe feeling piece of music.
That's awesome. Matt, you're so good at this. I'm like, did you hear that swoosh effect? And Matt's like, Jeremy, I would entreat you and our listening audience to ponder the psychological and emotional effects of this swooshing sound.
I didn't get 3 degrees in this stuff for nothing, I guess.
You save me every time.
Good times. Good times, man.
Great job, Gerald.
Great job, Gerald. We love your music.
Thanks for sending that in. We can't wait to hear more.
Yes.
Because he says he wasn't entirely finished. He wants to put some lyrics to it.
Wants to put some lyrics
He
to
wants
it.
to build on this, but he's got the main, the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, the meat and potatoes, as we say. Yeah. All right.
All right, let's move on, shall
What's
we?
next?
Okay, we got a listener, Linda Felcone.
Okay.
And she sent me a YouTube video, and it didn't say anything. I just kind of clicked on it, and there she was, this woman playing the piano.
Nice.
And so I got backwards, and I was like, "Oh, is this yours?" And yes, sure enough, it is hers. And so I'd like to feature that today. This is called "Cluck Cluck Cluck." The leaves are falling.
So rather than a long introduction, maybe it is better for us to experience it the way you did it first, which is just hearing it.
Just click and listen.
Just hearing some sounds.
Okay, so let's dig on this.
Okay.
This is "Cluck Cluck Cluck." The leaves are falling by Linda Felcone.
Very nice.
Matt, I've heard some of your music that kind of reminded me of this mood.
You know, I almost was thinking the same kind of thing.
Were you?
Yeah, this kind of lives in my space a little bit, which is great. Yeah,
It's very beautiful. Very diatonic.
Diatonic, yeah, but not boringly diatonic.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's some things. There's some pedal notes in the left hand there that are facilitating a kind of stability. You know, over which the motion in the right hand it can kind of flow. Right. So it's got this sort of water flowing over rocks.
Yeah.
Kind of feel to it. Yeah, very beautiful.
I like the way you said that. There's a cascading effect.
Yeah.
You know, cascading for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What else was I going to say about that? Oh, not unlike the first piece we heard, Twinkle, Twinkle, or Creepy, Creepy.
Right.
This was clearly done on a smartphone.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
We can hear everything just fine, and it almost makes it sound older, like it was like an ancient,
like an old piano.
Yeah, like an old recording on a record or something like that.
Yeah.
With the noise floor or whatever is going,
Right.
But anyways, so Linda, she lives part-time in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Okay.
And part-time in Princeton, New Jersey.
Okay.
She found our podcast while looking for an explanation of different minor keys and then later for the lowdown on cadences.
Aha.
And I should say, Lynn, I didn't just get this email from out of nowhere where just this YouTube link with nothing. She had contacted me before, thanking us for the show.
It wasn't just an unsolicited YouTube link.
Yeah, it wasn't that. But I had forgotten the conversation where I had said, send me some of your stuff. And then about a month later, I think I got it. Or maybe I saw it a month later. But anyways, so yeah, it's been really cool engaging with her. And why don't you tell us what else she has to say here,
Okay,
Matt?
so Linda says, I grew up in Virginia where my sister and I collected and sang Appalachian songs, almost invariably sad. Yes, they are almost invariably sad. My sister also loved Middle Eastern music, which she accessed on a shortwave radio. We lived in a creative environment in the woods as our parents were both professional artists. Nice. Cool. We spent a lot of time in the garage with an old piano harp that leaned against a rough wooden wall. We learned to appreciate combining tones and seeing the imagery each evoked. I studied piano for 1 year and started writing music as a child, maybe 10 or so. Unfortunately, my piano teacher had addiction issues and wasn't reliable, and we lived in the boonies. Oh, well. I had no way of capturing the pieces I wrote as a child, but they were good friends at the time, and people I played them for appreciated them. I switched to guitar and played by ear for maybe 2 decades. My sister played auto harp. It wasn't until I had been in a church choir in Princeton, New Jersey, that I had decided to learn to read music. I was particularly weak on rhythm. I studied classical guitar in my late 40s or early 50s, learning most of the elementary repertoire, which was mostly Spanish and hauntingly sad. There's a sad theme here in Linda's musical life. It brought me great joy, so I played it for old ladies in nursing homes as a volunteer.
Sad music brought her great joy, so she brought it to old ladies at the nursing home.
I mean, again, we've already mentioned that this music kind of lives in the same space as me, so I understand the sad music bringing you great joy.
Me too. I like sad stuff way more than happy stuff. It's just more real. I like minor keys.
I compose in minor keys almost all the time. Yeah. One of my daughters studied classical piano, so we got a piano. Then I got interested in jazz tunes because my Yankee husband loved them and wanted to play them for the old ladies.
Yankee husband.
Oh, fun. I became fascinated with everything jazz for about a decade and got some easy piano jazz standard books with good arrangements by Hal Leonard. Bless his heart. I saw what a difference an arrangement can make with both hymns and American tunes, so I thought I'd best learn some theory so I could consider arranging. I started going to the New School for Music Studies in Kingston, New Jersey. Interesting.
Yeah.
I switched to classical piano and am now an intermediate player right now in I'm in a book of Scarlatti. Wow, nice. And I have some impressionist pieces by Jennifer Lynn. Even nicer.
You mentioned her before, haven't you?
Yeah.
You mentioned her, yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate Scarlatti because he surprises me so much and is not locked into strictly Northern European ways of imagining. No, he's not. Not at all. I am an old lady now myself, but still ageless in the music sphere, still green and hungry for interesting tips on theory and composition. A lot of my family is musical and none are professionals, though both my daughters get money to teach kids music but have day jobs. Yeah, those day jobs.
They keep us playing music.
Yeah, exactly. I started to write music again during pandemic in my mid-70s. Had a family and a career, so music took a backseat for much of my life. Hope to live long enough to write one good song or hymn. Try my hand at a Christmas carol this year.
This is not uncommon.
No.
And for a lot of our listeners, most of the people who write in are people who are saying, they're upwards in age.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah, I had to deal with a career and a personal life.
Yeah.
But now everything's taking care of itself. So I have time on my hands.
Right. And I have time to actually explore this as much as I want to. Yeah, this is absolutely a thing.
This is your time.
Absolutely, yeah. Not everybody in the world gets to be professional musicians, and we don't want the world to be full of professional musicians.
No,
I promise you. So, but music can be an important part of anybody's life, and I'm so glad that this is a part of Linda's. And I love this piano piece. I'm going to be listening to this again soon.
Yeah, in fact, very soon.
But even after that,
I would say it's a very Appalachian sound. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The melody itself, I guess maybe it's a little, it's not completely pentatonic.
Not completely out of, I'd have to, I'm going to get to hear it again, so
Yeah.
I'll listen to see, but it's largely pentatonic.
Maybe focus on the pentatonic. Maybe the focus is on the pentatonic
Right,
notes.
yeah.
And it's cool that her sister plays the auto harp.
Auto harp.
That's about as Appalachian as it gets.
That's about as Appalachian as it gets, man.
Okay, so let's listen to this one more time.
Okay.
This is Cluck, 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 The Leaves Are Falling by Linda Felcone. This is this main theme set up by 1-4-3 in A minor. Well, this is the main theme here.
Definitely some non-pentatonic things going on in the melody.
Cool harmonies. Back to this little theme. This is my favorite part. There's a change in mood right there. And then back to the main theme. This has been sticking in my head a lot.
Yeah.
There we go again. Maybe the B material. And then we kind of go out on that low A note, back to
Nice.
one.
Yeah. So I'm getting a sense of why this, number one, reminded me a lot of my music.
Yes.
And two, kind of reminded me sort of Debussy or, maybe Darius Milhaud or one of those French impressionist people.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of what's going on is she's having, the left hand is largely pentatonic, as you observed.
Yeah, it's just A, D, and C.
Yeah.
1-4-3 in a minor.
Yes. Or probably up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the and kind of stuff going on in the right hand is more full A natural minor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got this multi-texture, this polytexture of A minor pentatonic in the left hand and a natural minor in the right.
Ooh, a polytexture.
Polytexture, right? Which is something that, composers like Debussy and Eric Satie and all of those turn of the 20th century French people were big on.
Okay.
So it kind of has that feel to me.
Yeah, okay,
And
yeah.
I love that music. And of course, a lot of my music deals with polytonality, A minor over E minor and things like that. So that kind of polytexture thing reminds me of myself
Yeah,
a lot too. So goes without saying I like it at this point, right? But yeah, beautiful piece. Beautiful piece.
Fantastic work, Linda.
Fantastic.
Keep writing and let us know. We have at least until December for that Christmas carol. So
Yeah, better get on it.
let us know how that goes. Thanks again. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful. So, Linda, we'll put a link to her YouTube page and we'll put a link to this video.
Yes.
And there you can see more of her work, and you can see her performing it.
Indeed.
Which is the coolest thing,
It was
honestly.
the best part, right?
Yeah, best part. Okay, so now it is story time.
It is story time.
I was going into my favorite local coffee shop not long ago.
Okay.
The barista on that day was a fellow named David, who I had seen many times in the shop. Mm-hmm. This is Crestwood Coffee. I should probably give them a little plug.
Yeah, heads up to Crestwood Coffee.
For the Birmingham people who are listening, all 2 of you. But there was this really interesting music playing on the house system, and it kind of reminded me of some of the more contemporary 20th century composers that we might one day talk about on the show. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I asked him who that was, and he said, "It's me." And we're pretty sure that what I was hearing on that day was the song, this piece called Aviary.
Yep.
And it turns out that was an abstraction of the first 3 notes of Burt Bacharach's Close to You. And I was just so intrigued and impressed that I had to get his SoundCloud page and info, and I was able to kind of sample his music.
Yeah.
The playlist of Reverend Jack Ladybird, this is his artist name, was a fine mixed bag of quirky 8-bit compositions, very Nintendo-like, and thusly very nostalgic for me, of course. And he had some minimalist pieces that kind of suck you right in, and then some other larger textures that really take you to many places.
Sure, yeah.
So he seems to enjoy playing on whatever sonic playground is available.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong about that, Reverend, but I think I'm right. He has this piece called, and because his piece is kind of short, I'm going to play a couple little bits of his other stuff.
Okay.
And I'm going to do that a little bit on this show. He has a piece called Well, Would You Look at That? And it just kind of made me laugh out loud because he's got this weird sound. There it is. What is that?
That's crazy.
So anyways, he's got all these crazy kind of percussion, kind of erratic things going on, and there's this weird little sound that I cannot pin, but it sounds like some kind of screechy whistle kind of sound. And it just sent me over, man. I don't know why. And then he's got another piece called Gambling Problem, where he intentionally made the end of the marimba intro sound like the player was losing the 4/4 beat by mixing triplets with 16 notes and rests. I like his naming style. It kind of reminds me of my own.
He has a very sort of 1960s kind of level experimentalism sort of approach going on, doesn't he?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would concur. But the piece we're going to showcase today, on this episode, kind of caught my attention via the title.
Restless Leg Syndrome.
Restless Leg Syndrome. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, that sounds about right.
That sounds about right.
I mean, based on the footage I've seen of people struggling with RLS, Restless Leg Syndrome. So let's go ahead and give this our first listen. This is Restless Leg Syndrome by David Black, a.k.a. Reverend Jack Ladybird.
Okay, I can't wait for this.
All right, man. What do you think about that?
I am hearing a lot of minimalist influence.
Yeah.
Reich and Glass, perhaps, although a little bit more lighthearted than both of those guys, I would think.
Yeah, Steve Reich, Philip Glass.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, it sort of puts me more in the realm of, who's the guy that did NC?
Oh, Terry Riley.
Terry Riley, yeah. It sort of puts me more in the sort of Terry Riley kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. Which is great. Love it. Yeah, little 1960s experimental minimalist kind of stuff going on. Very nice.
Well, here's a little something about David here.
Okay.
Now, David does not have restless leg syndrome.
Okay.
But a chronic pain that has since worsened and made the barista gigs a bit more difficult. And it also makes his sleep generally restless, he says. These things, and also what he referred to as a poorly treated anxiety, have him pretty sure that he understands the struggle of this condition. He has no formal training in music, but a lifelong passion that made him a thirsty listener for many genres. He moved to Birmingham in 2007 and started playing solo gigs as well as collaborating with other local acts such as the Red Mountain Family Band, kind of a country thing, and the Yakuza Dance Mob, which I'm very curious about.
Yakuza Dance Mob, me too.
Yeah. He is currently composing on a site called Note Flight, and it's actually a pretty cool site if you haven't seen it before.
All right, I'll check it out.
Much like MuseScore or any notation software, but it's a web-based.
Oh, yeah. I do know what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, he can't sight read, but he has enough notation knowledge to put down his ideas and play with rhythms and odd meters, as we're learning here. Some of his pieces transcend the standard writing approach in my mind. One of his tracks, Moai, was written by tracing a silhouette of one of the giant heads of the Easter Island onto a musical staff and mapped out and modulated from there.
Fascinating.
So let's hear what the good Reverend has to say, Matt.
All right, so the Reverend says, I'm a big fan of Conlon Nancarrow. Yeah, okay, tracks, yeah. Conlon Nancarrow, he was famous for his player piano music.
Yeah.
He composed onto the sheet for the player piano and composed it. And because of that, he could do things that no human pianist could do, right? Because it was the machine, right? So, okay. All right.
Exactly.
So I'm a big fan of Conlon Nancarrow, who composed directly on player piano paper to create things that were unplayable by human hands. I ought to read before I start running my mouth. I often use the notation software in a similar way, like writing a part for flute that's 3 octaves below what an actual flute can play because MIDI doesn't care. He's correct.
MIDI doesn't care.
Or by capitalizing on the glitches in the way the software plays glissandos. I think one of my bigger influences is the commercial incidental music, bumpers, and jingles we were all surrounded by growing up, and the Mike Post and Henry Mancini TV theme songs of the late 70s and 80s. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the title is the last thing I think of. Restless leg syndrome could just as easily have been called the 8 o'clock rush or I'm about to miss my bus or some such.
I could see either of those.
Sure. I had just upgraded the MIDI instruments available on the program I used and was playing around with the celesta tone. I think timbre is super important, and I find some of the basic MIDI instruments nearly unlistenable because of their upper frequencies. Others are okay, so long as they're kept within bounds, like using pizzicato or spiccato on upper-registered bowed instruments. Mm-hmm. This piece was written alongside several other pieces when I was home during the pandemic, around May and June of 2020. The meter is something I play with a lot. The whole thing is written in 3/4, but the bass enters on the 1 in this second measure, but the second and third bass notes are a 16th note ahead, which is very Steve Reich / Philip Glass. And really Steve Reich.
So to me, the metric chaos begins right off the bat.
It begins right off the bat, yeah. Then when the bass comes back and it's right on the nose, then the electric piano part comes in on the 3, plays on the 1, and then is silent during the second beat. This, I think, adds to the sense of propulsion. Since I'm not writing for a human to play, I can do things like use dotted eighth notes to create a 4/4 feel in a 6/8 piece without worrying about changing the time signature. Mm-hmm. Well, there are humans that could do that for you, that particular thing. But there are composers who felt the great freedom of technology in this particular way, and even the great freedom of MIDI in this particular way. MIDI's big failing has always been, as the good Reverend pointed out, the timbres not always being up to snuff. But we're living in a world where they're improving every day, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to invest enough money, you can get some extremely realistic MIDI-based sounds nowadays.
And even with a lower budget, you can invest more time into articulating and messing with these parameters to make it sound more human or less robotic.
Or less,
So yeah, man.
Pretty cool stuff. I like that.
Yes, when I hear just the kind of, it's the urgency of the piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you're looking at the score, which we'll put up on the website, it appears to be in C.
It appears to be in the C.
I don't see any sharps or accidentals. And then the last 3 chords, believe it or not, the very last chord is a C chord. Let's see here. Okay, so there's 4 chords at the end. We have an F, which is a 4 chord in the key of C. It's in first inversion because we have that A in the bass, and then in the upper voice we have a B, which actually makes it like an F add sharp 4. And then we have a 5/7 G, G7, and then a D minor 9 2 chord going to a 1 in first inversion. Mm-hmm. So we have a C with an E in the bass.
Mm-hmm.
And still, to me, maybe it's because of the it didn't sound like we resolved at 1 to me. And maybe that's part of the point of restless leg syndrome.
This piece is not resolving in that classical harmonic way.
It's still landing on C, and there's a 5 before, but there's that 2/9 chord in between.
Yeah, which is a messed up chord.
Mm-hmm.
But this piece feels more held together by the rhythm, really.
Yeah,
and the consistency, right?
Right.
So the rhythmic and note consistency more than by the idea of chord progression.
Exactly. And so when we hear this again, I'm going to start off counting in 3/4 just to establish the meter, but then I'm going to go ahead and drop off because during this piece, I start nodding my head. I start bopping my head.
Right.
But if I start counting, I stop bopping my head.
All right, so you do that, and I'm going to pretend I don't know what the meter is.
Oh, boy. Okay.
And we'll see. Let's see if we can derive a hypermeter here.
Okay, you ready?
Yes. Have we talked about hypermeter? We should.
We should. On another episode.
But that is another podcast.
Okay, here we go. Second listen, Restless Leg Syndrome by Reverend Jack Ladybird. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And now the electric piano in the mid-range. And the Celesta on top, which will soon take the main theme. You hear how that bass is dancing all around?
Yep.
Syncopations everywhere. Okay, so here's the main theme. I've officially lost count.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. It really is in 3/4.
It still sounds, but it sounds like because he's dancing all around with the accents.
Yeah.
It's pleasant in its own way.
Oh, sure.
Albeit about a sleepless condition, even though he said he named it after the fact.
Can almost hear that in 6/8.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1.
I
Not this
found-
part.
This main theme kind of makes me jump out of my seat a little bit. And with some headphones, you can really hear the stereo interplay. It's almost like there's a left leg, right leg kind of kicking effect, even though he named it after the fact. And then these last chords. Four, 5, 2, 1. In first inversion.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, and it was really hard. It's kind of hard to talk during what was going on because there was so much, I didn't want to kind of.
I was concentrating.
Yeah, I was kind of concentrating. And again, when I try to count, I lose it,
Yeah.
I had sat there myself before I got that email from him, just kind of coming up with all kinds of crazy time signatures because he's just a master at confusing you in that way. And that's exactly the feel. That's the feeling I get when I think about people, or when nights I can't sleep. When my mind is busy, restless mind, restless leg, restless whatever.
Yep.
That's just the feeling, and he's done such a fine job of capturing that.
Exactly.
And if you want to hear more of his stuff, and he has a great variety of cool things, his main platform is SoundCloud.
Yep.
And that is the Reverend Jack Ladybird.
Right.
And we want to thank him again for
Thank you, Reverend.
letting us showcase this. It's kind
Indeed.
of it's kind of interesting because this is listener compositions episode.
Yep.
But in this rare case, I found this in my own backyard,
Yeah,
and it's
great.
It's amazing to think about what talent lies within your
Everywhere.
4-block radius. Yeah.
I've the older I get, the more I come to believe every human being is legitimately artistic and legitimately creative, and that we really probably ought not be so deliberate in our society with separating the artists from the everyday non-artist people, because
yeah.
I really feel like that at the end of the day, every human being is legitimately artistic and creative.
I like
It
that.
really is.
I agree.
So there you go.
Like you see some of the stuff people do as children,
Right?
and then they grow out of it.
And then they're told, don't draw on the wall, right?
All right. So thanks again, Reverend Jack Ladybird.
The Honorable Reverend Jack Ladybird.
Now, moving on, we have a listener who we most recently met as well. We have our friend Adam Hayes, who is, let's see here. Adam Hayes is in Liverpool, UK.
Okay.
We met Adam in episode 107, Reading Music. I gave him a shout out for his Patreon patronage, and we appreciate that. He has shared some of his piano music with me, and among them there are tracks like Titan's Celestial Aurora. And I just thought, wow, for a 19-year-old, this young man has a very mature composition instinct.
Yeah.
And so I also asked him if he had anything he wanted to submit to the Listener Compositions episode. And he shared another piece called Hysteresis. Hysteresis?
Hysteresis.
Where he also kind of had a little fun with some chromatic percussion, kind of like those marimbas we were hearing earlier.
Right.
And also some effects, like in this one, he has a kalimba
Yep.
patch that he kind of over time wets down with reverb.
Yeah.
So it starts off real solid and dry.
Yep.
And then by the end of it, you can't even hear the notes. You just hear the wash
Sure.
of
Yeah.
the reverb that
Yeah.
comes over. It's a really cool technique. And I also found it to be demonstrative of his technical prowess.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But today we get to hear a piece of his called Arshen. Arshen.
Right.
To me, this is one of his more sonically textured pieces, and he uses the techniques of assigning a theme to a character and developing it as the piece unfolds.
Right. Yep.
Much like someone who scores for movies
Sure.
would do.
Sure.
So, let's go ahead and give this our first listen, shall
All
we?
right. Let's do.
Okay, this is Arshen by Adam Hayes.
Very nice.
Very nice.
He is very good at creating those feels, isn't he?
Yeah.
Those almost epic movie score feels.
There's actually kind of a reason for that.
Oh yeah.
That he's kind of explained here, which is very interesting.
Oh, I should read again, huh?
No, this is my part. I have this here.
Oh, you have that part.
See,
Okay.
all the stuff in red I've deleted from your score.
Okay, got it.
Because I like to
Gotta keep me pure, huh?
keep it pure. Like I said, Matt has heard most of these songs because I sent him a folder, but
Yes, I listened.
he does not know the backstories.
I do not know backstories. I'm just absorbing.
And this is always the fun part, in my opinion.
This is kind of Matt torture a little bit. Except that I enjoy it. So joke's on you.
What does that say about you, Matt?
I don't know, man. I'm scared to think about it.
So here's a fun fact. The piano piece that we played earlier, or prior to what we just heard, anyways, was a story of a fantastical land that Adam transports himself to called Arofia.
Arofia.
Yeah. The Titan mentioned in the title was a character in this realm that he is building in his vivid imagination.
Nice.
The piece we just heard was based on another character in this realm, a blacksmith.
Interesting.
This would be the blacksmith Arshan.
Okay. Hence the low vocals at the beginning.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the hums.
Yeah.
And they kind of established his theme.
Yeah.
What does Adam have to say about this piece, Matt?
So Adam says, from my experience in imagining Arofia, it has proved a massive boon to my creativity to have all of my random and insane ideas be linked somehow by something that's significant to me. You could say it matches my creative temperament perfectly, so to speak. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, all of the intro choir was done by the choir section in Contact Factory Library. Mm-hmm. The syllable was set to an M sound, and the reverb was turned off. The key important part was imagining what purpose the intro served in the piece as a whole. I imagine it serves similar to how chords or choirs regale us with folklore and legend from the past, similar to the various songs you'd hear in Skyrim about the Dragonborn. I don't play Skyrim, so...
I told him that during the pandemic, I actually picked it back up. I had played it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I picked it back up, and whenever you get a level up, or when you ever learn a new dragon shout, you hear this... kind of thing, like a big old choir.
Got it.
And so, that's...
All right. So the real key of the MIDI instrumentation, in my experience, is also to make sure that it isn't perfect. I mess up the note length slightly, randomize the note velocity, and get it sounding nice and imperfect. Interesting insight.
We spoke of this.
Yes. Even better, if you can use a MIDI keyboard, as your imperfect human ears will do part of the process for you.
Yeah.
No kidding.
All right, now regarding his vocals, let's hear how he went about those shouts.
So the shout. So he says, what that is actually is me just saying he-ya and so-ka into the microphone several times over several octaves with the aid of some voice mangling in post. In terms of music production, it's a transition noise, similar to a riser or a crash swell. In terms of the story, I imagined it to be a battle cry to show that Arshan's story is fraught with peril and danger, but he triumphs through it all.
Yeah.
Regarding the main theme, Adam says, I essentially am trying to show the melody and theme of Arshan in different lights to be able to tell a story, with the instrumentation perhaps more so than the melody itself. Some people I've shown this to have critiqued it, saying that since there's really only 2 melodic phrases in here, it doesn't really feel developed, which is an understandable thing to point out.
Matt, what are your thoughts on that? It's a very short piece.
It's a short piece. There's really only 2 melodies here, is the critique.
Yeah, but I thought I heard maybe 3.
Well, go count the number of melodies in Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, First Movement.
Oh yeah, huh?
There are 2.
Okay.
So there you go.
Critique denied.
Critique denied. Exactly. I don't know. It's interesting to me, the sort of the second level imagining it, and we call this programmatic music, right?
Yes.
Or a version of programmatic music, where the music is, to some extent, telling a story or depicting a mental image, and I would call this legitimately programmatic, and is telling a type of story. Even if it's not a full on out, and then he did this kind of thing, there's still a story to be had here. It's always fascinating to me. If you knew none of this, how would you respond to Arshin? How would you respond to this music if you knew none of this background story? Because, spoiler alert, I didn't, right? We covered that. Yeah. How would you relate to this music?
We talked a little bit about some parallel fifth motion in there, in the piano part.
Right.
And he seemed a little bit, but he also kind of defended himself.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
And I thought to myself, this sounds like something from the time period.
Yeah.
When there was not much more than that kind of thing going on in music.
Right.
And that's the sound people use when they want to use this ancient, time period. Yeah. So I think that lends itself just fine.
Sure.
To this character.
Yeah.
And then at the end, and then we have the drums. The drums come in. There's like some drama.
Right.
There's probably a battle or a war or something maybe. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, it's kind of interesting because where a lot of people are fanfared in, there's a fanfare at the end of this piece fanfaring him out. Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
So one of my favorite psychologists is Carl Jung, who a lot of people thought was just crazy. And he sort of took that in stride. But Carl Jung talked a lot about a collective unconscious. And one of my favorite things to think about, when I'm sitting around by myself with little else going on, is to think about how ideas of archetypes and collective unconscious and all that Carl Jung stuff might apply to music. I'm not the first person to wonder about this. There's actually a Russian music theorist that coined the phrase intonatia. Ooh. The idea of a musical idea that sort of creates a mental image in your head.
Interesting.
And so, when I hear the ms at the beginning, for example, okay, so the first time I heard this, I didn't know anything about the world that Adam had created in his head. I was just listening to this, but there is a connotation of masculinity in those male vocal right? Yeah, there is a connotation, like you said, in the fifths of maybe a sort of an ancient culture kind of vibe, right? Yeah. Or an epic fantasy kind of culture kind of vibe, because those two things are linked. In
time where blacksmiths were doing their thing.
Right, yeah. Even though I didn't have the word blacksmith in my brain, I have an idea, right? This is a kind of a collective unconscious.
Yeah.
Transmitted through music, right? Because we all kind of have these same little associations that we don't realize. Male vocals, for example, and the fanfare at the end, same situation, right? The hero fanfare is something that you've heard. Look, you don't have to study music, all right? If you've seen the Transformers movies, every time Optimus Prime is on the screen, you hear a heroic major key melody in a trumpet. Yeah. So this is something that is ingrained in all of our psychologies when we're all living in the same culture, right?
Yep.
And so he can, even when he doesn't communicate the exact details, he's communicating something.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's top it off with what else he said about this in terms of when he made it. And
let's see. Let's top it off by saying, so this piece was made actually recently. This was made as a project to just release more music that people can use for their video games, films, or projects. I had to stop releasing these as I suddenly found after starting work that I had no time really to continue at the pace I was at before. Of course, as I was doing this really for the fun of it, if there should be a demand for it in the future, I may return to it. This is all released on my YouTube channel, Adam Hayes. Arshin was made just 9 days before my birthday, funnily enough. I make songs like Arshin as a benchmark and a test of my skills so that I can look at them in the future and remind myself of how far I've come as a musician. Yeah, nice. I even have the very first few songs I made on a separate SoundCloud account that I occasionally show people to embarrass myself and remind myself of how far I've come as a musician. That is why I show people my YouTube channel, Adam, is to embarrass myself.
That you may humble yourself in front of musically.
Yeah, that I may show this, say, look at what I did, and everybody can laugh at it, and and I can get like 3 views, and right.
Okay, that's enough for that. Now let's hear what we did today. Let's hear what I did yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, it's this is going to release at the end of April, which means we got a birthday coming up for Adam.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Adam.
soon-to-be birthday. So anyways, let's give this another listen. And let us chat about it as we do so. Arshin by Adam Hayes. Call and response
Yeah.
with the
good
male
call.
vocals and the
Absolutely.
piano, also in the lower register.
Yep.
We widen our textures with the choir, and then I just love that.
Yeah.
Now here comes we're picking up the tempo a bit.
Yep.
These horns.
And this is all sort of, like I said, part of a general kind of tapestry, right?
Yeah. Here's some drama.
The melody kind of reminds me of Greensleeves a little.
Greensleeves. Now I feel like it's on.
Yeah.
Something's danger is right around.
Programmaticism.
I feel proud now. I feel proud, like we're about to kick somebody's butt.
I feel like maybe our blacksmith is hammering a sword or something.
With which to kick some more butt. Now we're kind of this interesting thing coming up. You hear that offbeat? Bop.
Yeah.
I thought this was the third theme, but maybe this is just the second theme. I don't know.
That's the second thing.
And now we're back to business with our main theme. And those drums, which I love.
Nice piano work over the drums. Yeah, that's...
I need to do more of this somatic drum sound kind of thing. And then, this is the fanfare thing I was talking about.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
You know, that whole, that cinematic kind of really tribal drum sound you hear, that's not going anywhere, man. That's been around for 3 decades now. They've been using that in movies probably more than that.
Oh, God, yeah.
And it's just a cool, effective technique, you know?
Yeah.
Video game music.
Yeah, well, yeah, the idea of tribal drums has been around for 3 millennia.
Yeah, it's been around quite some time.
Yeah.
Especially in regards to the kind of the war battlefield atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I just love everything about that. A lot of cool textures coming in and out, a lot of cool sonic tweaks and ideas. He really put a lot of thought. He sent me some graphics about how he tweaked the sound files.
Nice.
And it was very in depth.
Nice.
This guy,
Nerding out. Love it.
these composers are putting a lot of thought into the stuff they're doing.
Oh, sure.
You know, more
oh,
so
yeah.
than a lot of times I do. I'll be frank.
we put different kinds of thought.
Yeah. Mainly like when I'm doing the podcast shows, it's like I only have like so many days and
Right.
I'm not gonna. This is not about me. This is about
Not
the
a-
listen. This is about listener composers who have shared their talents with us, like our good Adam Hayes, who you can find on YouTube and SoundCloud. That's Adam Adam Hayes Hayes. So now we're gonna move on because this is also about our new friend Kara Ciezki.
Kara Ciezki.
Our next composer is Kara Ciezki, and now it's time to go to the majestic land of Japan
You're for Honshirabe.
via the current land of Down Under.
Interesting.
We met Kara through our good friends Tex, the legend, Owen,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and his partner in crime and songwriter, Gerald Anderson.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We featured both of them in our premiere Listener Compositions episode number 170.
Absolutely. I still listen to her CD.
And I've listened to a lot of Kara's music, and I will say that she gives extraordinary attention to detail, sonically and technically, to her music.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, we will play this piece of hers.
I'm looking forward to this one.
So this is Han Shirabi. Han Shirabi?
I'm not the person to ask.
No?
Honshirabe? I am not the person to ask.
It's Japanese.
Yes, it is.
It's Japanese, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about that later on. But here it is. Han Shirabi, a traditional Japanese tune reinterpreted by Kara Ciezki.
Nice. Fascinating.
I was looking at you, Matt, and you were kind of doing the same thing as I was doing the first time I heard this. I told her about this. Yeah, I saw you. The whole time you're just kind of, you had your eyes closed and just kind of fixed. You weren't looking up at the ceiling or anything like that.
Nope.
You were just kind of sitting there, fixed on it.
Meditating.
And then I told her, I was actually sitting there doing my laundry when I first heard this. And at some point I just found myself, the sock in my hand, about to fall out. I was just kind of looking through where my TV would be, just kind of staring through the television.
Yep. Yeah.
It really has a trancing effect to it.
It is very, very entrancing. So that's a shakuhachi.
A shakuhachi.
Or maybe a collection of shakuhachi.
Possibly. I don't know. I tell you what, I'll tell you a little bit about Kara.
Okay.
And then she's going to tell us a little bit about the piece.
Okay.
Now, she studied the recorder. And by the way, what you were just hearing was a recorder. Okay? So this is not some kind of, what do you call it? The one that starts with the X, the Japanese instrument. It's not some crazy Japanese instrument.
Right, yeah. It's just a recorder.
Yeah.
Shoot, you could have fooled me, man.
Well, that's what she did.
She did fool me.
She found a way to manipulate it with her breathing and her techniques. And I think when you have your finger over the hole, you can kind of halfway slide it off and make
some
that
things
sliding kind of glissando effect.
Yep.
But anyways, So she studied the recorder and performance thereof at Melbourne University and then went to Boston to study under recorder master Aldo Abreu.
Wow.
There she won a woodwind concerto competition and then on to the New England Conservatory, where she got her master's in early music and performance.
Very nice.
Part of her degree included jazz classes where she found her improv skills improving.
Yep.
To which she credits putting herself outside of her comfort zone. That sounds legit.
Yep.
When she returned to Australia, she started working on more contemporary projects with the likes of DJ Cubist, while still incorporating classical riffs into dubstep beats.
Nice.
Doesn't that sound kind of cool?
Yep.
I've heard some of this before. It's really fun, amazing stuff. From there, she started playing in cover bands and doing theater work. So we got ourselves a true performer here.
No kidding.
Yeah. From there, she got into producing music for some of these theater productions. Now, in 2015, she took a year off of music for personal reasons, but she really just ended up missing it and came back to it, and it's a good thing she did.
Yes.
She started playing with bands again and singing background vocals, and then taking some piano bar singing gigs.
Nice.
Where you got the nice kind of classy.
So this is an eclectic musician we're dealing with here.
Absolutely. We just heard she hasn't said anything about Japan just yet. We haven't even hit that. So anyways, now she's back in the groove and kind of working on some original material at Bass Studio in Melbourne, Australia. And she wants to give a shout out to Chris Wiseman, her main producer.
Very nice.
And producers don't get a lot of credit on all these albums, but usually if something sounds well produced, it's because
you had a good producer.
Or you have some production knowledge yourself,
Yeah.
which she obviously does as well. So Matt, let's hear about her process, her methods.
All right. I hear everything in my head, literally. I don't know how, but I can hear it. Then I sing it on an audio clip on my phone or notate it out. This is ear training, is this ability. This is oral skills.
Yeah, okay.
I do this for every element in the piece, and I am still old school. I map out everything in notes on paper and write out the structures, send it to Chris, the producer, who then inputs the structure on Pro Tools and sends it back to me to check. Then we go from there, i.e. finding sounds, scratching out vocals, recorder lines, etc. As much as I should follow music theory, I actually don't anymore. Well, that's okay. That's okay. I follow my gut, i.e. what I hear in my head. There were broken rules with Bach all over the place, for example. So why did we ever stop breaking music rules? Well, we can have a whole discussion about that. If you listen to the podcast, you know how I feel about music theory as a set of rules, right? Yes.
Conventions, please.
Conventions. Right. And sometimes I will get stuck on the sound I want, and then I'll start listening to tunes in general until I hear something that I know will fit, cite the tune and moment where it happens. Then Chris and I emulate that sound and basically end up creating something absolutely unique with layering, etc. I am also a perfectionist. When everything is done, Chris will send my tune to me via Dropbox, and I will listen to it and send him notes for adjustments, amendments, additions, etc. For most of the tunes, I will go up to 25 reworks until I'm happy. But sometimes it's just one little note in one spot or one effect that needs an extra lift. Just tiny things and attention to detail that really make the difference.
You know, that's not uncommon. 25 is you're not like a psycho.
No, you're not right. That's fairly typical, you know. I mean, some people do it 1, some people do it 150, you know. Kara does it 25.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Now, what does she have to say specifically regarding Han Shirabe?
So this is a traditional tune that literally means basic melody. It appears on many albums and has many interpretations, including appearing on Miyate Kohachiro's album where I drew my inspiration. It's a traditional learning or introduction piece where you take your own approach and create your own song and distinctive voice. Each explanation on each album shares the similar approach. So this tune belongs to no one. It is a traditional Bushi melody. This might actually add to what you want to explore in regards to making it your own. It should just be a single melody line. However, my creative side wanted it to be a duet, so I feel I ticked that box without even knowing it at the time.
She defied the laws of tradition.
Yeah, well, you know.
There's a crusade only of the brave.
Tradition is a fine thing taken in moderation, right? I ended up writing them out, obviously in Western style, but due to the nature of how I knew I needed to play them, I used freehand method and used lines and curves to demonstrate where I wanted to take the note, how long it might need to be compared to other notes, and etc. So this might give you some insight into how I was thinking when I first produced this release. At the time, I wanted to make it look beautiful and free-flowing, and I added a bit of color to each one. So again, this is just my interpretation at the time, due to a bit of time and wisdom. I might even give this piece more space and time in areas, but I love how I use the C bass, the Kung C bass recorder with a bent head to really give it a lot of breath.
And you can hear that breath. You can hear that probably contributes to the authenticity of the sound.
I mean, like I said, she fooled me. That sounded like a shakuhachi to me, a traditional Japanese flute.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
On which bushi melodies are played.
Okay, yeah,
often,
okay.
Right?
Got it.
Yeah, this is it's a religious instrument in Japanese Buddhism, and but yeah, she could have fooled me. That sounded like a shakuhachi all day long. I would have thought it was. That's awesome.
If there's a movie or a show, and someone goes to climbs up the 7 million stairs to see the great...
and you hear the you either hear that or you hear the koto. Which is the stringed instrument, the little kind of play. Yeah. So there you go. It's a beautiful piece and very, very skillfully done. I am genuinely impressed with the performance techniques here.
Yeah,
genuinely impressed.
And this is all these are, as to my knowledge, just 2 tracks of her both. And then, but what I'm hearing is, and it must be something she's doing with her tongue or at the beginning of the note, on the attack of the note.
Yeah,
there's got to be something accounting for that, or causing that percussive sound.
Yeah.
It's like this is kind of...
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a wooden instrument being struck.
You're absolutely going to have to ask her. I've already totally missed what instrument this even is. So I'm done making assumptions. But
well, it is a C recorder, ultimately a low C recorder.
Okay.
Basically, and the melody, I think, kind of the main theme that begins the thing is just the C to D.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it happens in the higher register.
Yeah.
And then from there, it seems to just kind of move in a lot of different kind of simple steps.
Traditional Japanese scales are similar to pentatonic scales. They're not quite the same, but they are similar to pentatonic scales. So
there are some microtonal moments. There's moments where she slides to notes that I tried to identify on the piano.
And wasn't going to get it.
And it was in between somewhere. So
absolutely.
And to me, that really adds to the authenticity of the sound as well. Because as we know that there are a lot of more microtones in some of those cultures.
Yep.
Music
Indeed.
In some of those cultures.
Indeed.
So let's give this a listen again, shall we?
Okay. I don't know that I can say anything over this music. I think I can.
That's the thing. I don't want to say anything over it.
I don't want to say it. Maybe we're just going to listen again and be quiet again.
I'll whisper anything I got to say. How about that? Okay, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time. Hanshirabi by Kara Ciezki. There's that major second.
Yeah, there are microtones in that.
And then the other octave call and response kind of thing is going on. We have a conversation.
Right.
And like any good conversation, this kind of moves the piece forward to me. This interchange.
Yeah.
Like you said, I don't want to talk at all because all the subtle things going on.
Yeah.
But
that was nice.
On the top of some of those notes, you can hear that.
Yeah, I wanted, that almost sounds characteristic somehow. So.
Yeah. This is what I'm thinking. This is kind of the climax. Things really kind of start picking up.
Yep.
In pitch, in energy. In rhythm.
She really knows her traditional Japanese. I mean,
it's massaging my brain. Is what's happening. And now we're kind of mellowing back out to those main themes, the 7-1.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one right there. That bend. Oh.
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
I mean, I just can't believe that's a recorder.
Yeah.
That sound actually might be tongue staccato.
Yeah, like just the tongue kind of hitting it before it. Or releasing it and allowing for a big puff of air to kind of put a head on that note.
Yeah.
You really hear it on the last two notes.
Yeah, great stuff. All those little details are a part of the Japanese traditional music aesthetic.
Yeah, and it's something that no one's trying to get anywhere anytime soon. It's really more about a meditative, peaceful.
Yep.
I'm seeing koi in the pond.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Mist covering the mountains.
This is all part of the Japanese aesthetic, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't feel the great need to call this in a key or a mode or saying that there's any Tennessee stones or call anything 1 or 5, right? This is an entirely different aesthetic.
Yeah. And I fight that urge, especially before we do one of these episodes, I go back and listen to one of the past ones just so I can kind of get my mind back into it.
Yeah.
And I want to say, Matt, I did a pretty good job this time around about not trying to assign a lot of A and B sections to everything.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, can you get over that? Can you not just give sections to everything? And it's what I want to do.
Yeah. Lay off, Joseph Kerman. Everything doesn't have to be a section. Joseph Kerman being a musicologist who I feel like was very, very bad about trying to section off everything.
That's your own little inside joke.
My own little inside joke that nobody gets but me.
But back to Kara. And Kara, I'm sorry we couldn't say more during the piece, but we just felt...
We just really felt the need to be silent. So, congratulations. I think your piece was very effective in that way.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished,
I would say.
Indeed.
I feel actually more relaxed. If I check my blood pressure right now...
It's probably down. Which is probably a good thing.
So, Kara, your music is healing, one might say.
Yes. Good stuff.
So, you can find Kara's music on definitely on Spotify. And there's a few different Karas of the same spelling on Spotify. Ours is the one with there's a close-up headshot of her with the blue background and her fantastic curly hair. That's our Kara. Maybe put Han Sarabi in the search field. And you can hear more of it because there's plenty more. And from what I understand, there's plenty more to come.
Excellent. I can't wait.
So thanks again, Kara. And thanks again for all these musicians who sent us in your compositions. This has been such a great episode.
It really has.
And me and Matt both look forward to these episodes so much.
These are our favorite ones.
Yeah, totally. And now I do want to come back to what I said earlier about the episode on creativity during difficult times.
Right.
You may have noticed that a couple of these pieces were variations and explorations of older traditional pieces.
Yeah.
Twinkle, Twinkle, and then the one we just heard. Mm-hmm. But I happen to know that these composers both have plenty of original material that is in the works. And we may get to hear some of that in the next Listener Compositions episode.
I certainly hope so.
It kind of dawned on me that even if you have writer's block and can't think of a new melody to save your life, you can still play with music and stretch your creative muscles, right?
Right. Working
with previously written material.
Right.
Traditional, or be it something you heard on the radio just the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are where some of my best ideas come from.
Hey, that's what jazz people do all day long.
All day long, yeah.
All day long. And they have pretty good ears. A lot of the jazz musicians I know have pretty sophisticated ears. So, all that to say, and it's kind of cool that like people like Reverend Jack Ladybird was writing during the pandemic. So,
yeah.
Where
I wasn't.
No, Matt and I both admit to having had a creative lull during that time.
Absolutely. A lull is an understatement.
And we applaud the musicians who worked through the muck.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? Trudged through the muck of that
Indeed.
lull.
Yeah.
It was not fun.
No, it was not.
So again, hats off to our listener composers for this episode.
Thank you all so much.
Treybien and his daughter Alex.
Thank you, Trey.
Gerald P. David, a.k.a. Jerry.
Great piece, Gerald. I liked that one a lot.
Linda Felcone. Great finger work, great composition.
Beautiful piano piece.
That one hit Matt, I could tell. And it hit me too. And that's that melody still in my head. Reverend Jack Ladybird.
Yeah.
You are one of the most
Keep being you, man.
Yeah, eccentric. Yeah, it's just beautiful.
Keep being you.
Just, yeah. I don't even know the words to describe the music, but it's so engaging. And it had me just enjoying all of his music. All these people.
Absolutely.
But yeah. Adam Hayes, good job. Arshan, at the tender age of 19, has certainly more sophistication in his writing than I did.
Than I did at
that
19,
point,
you better
yeah.
believe.
So you got a good future ahead of you if you want to keep it up. And then, of course, Kara Ciezki. That's just fantastic
That's
work.
just amazing.
You are a sculptor of sound,
Yeah.
an artiste. Okay, now, how are we going to close this episode out?
How indeed.
So, in efforts to, for one thing, bring this all full circle,
Yep.
and to thank our good friends Cheryl's and Text for introducing us to Kara,
Yep.
I think it's time to hear a little bit more of their music. I want to close out with Cheryl's piece. We heard in episode 70 the song called James Dean by her.
Right.
Andersonlane is the name of the band out of Melbourne, Australia.
Right.
And when you talk to Cheryl, she's just as Australian as you can imagine in the accent.
Yep.
And when she sings, she's right out of Georgia, Alabama.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And appreciate that compliment, Cheryl, because we are from Alabama. I mean, we have discerning ears when it comes to Southern accents. Right?
We have been submerged in this.
Yeah. We can usually spot a faker. So.
Yeah.
And I said that faker with the worst Alabama accent ever because we can spot a faker from a mile away.
Yeah, buddy. But the song we heard of Cheryl's on that episode was called James Dean.
Right.
It was kind of like she had maybe had a bit too much fun one night and got a tattoo of James Dean and then didn't know who the hell. Who is this guy? She wakes up in the morning. Who is this? But that was kind of her rough and tumble side.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I listened to this album. They have The Fight, which you can find on Bandcamp and on Spotify.
Right.
And this one piece really hit me because it kind of exposes her softer side. And the verse, this is in the key of F. The verse is just basically 1-4, 1-5. And then the chorus goes 5-4 to 1, very straight up. And with a couple of extra beats in some of those measures for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
So she plays around with meter a little bit. And it's just sonically one of the more pleasing pieces I've heard in quite some time. And her songwriting has always gotten me. All of her songs, I mean, there's a lot of amazing stuff coming out of this woman's head.
Absolutely.
What does she have to say about this piece?
So Cheryl says, I had a lot of meaningful conversations with all kinds of people in research for that one. I inundated a few random people from all levels of my social circle, from barely acquainted, highly religious backgrounds to the fully redneck, blasphemous variety. Oh, boy. Fun.
I would have talked to a blasphemous redneck. Could a blasphemous redneck please raise their hand?
I'm looking for a blasphemous. I can just see her them doing surveys. Hello, I'm looking to talk to blasphemous redneck.
Might you be them? Might you be them?
I opened with the question, if you woke up at the pearly gates, what would he ask you? I had some beautiful answers, and this was one of my most favorite writing projects for sure.
That being, if you maybe die and go to heaven, what would God ask you?
What would God ask you? Yeah.
And we're about to hear his question and her answer. Oh, and she wanted to credit the musicians. We have Bill Chambers, who's kind of doing background vocals and most of the other instruments you hear, and then Paul Novosel on drums. So a shout out to you guys for a job well done.
Yeah.
And we'll put the lyrics on the website. The chorus, and I'll sing, forgiven I will fly. I will bring love into life. I will learn from the question I have not answered. Have I lived? God's gonna ask.
Very nice.
This is Have I Lived by Andersonlane from their more recent release, The Fight, which is available on Spotify and Bandcamp.
I have gambled on free fall with nothing but the sky. I have braved through the flame of the whiskey's darkest fight. The bottom has a basement you don't want to see. Have I lived? God's gonna ask. I saw poverty on the front row, barefoot on the line. I was touched by gypsy hands, they could warm the coldest night. Her perfume still lingers like the sweat of guilty sin. Have I lived? God's gonna ask. And I'll say, forgiven, I will fly. I will bring love into life. I will learn from the question unanswered. Have I lived? God's gonna ask. I will speak with the cross in the southern stars. I will share with the hungry, for I've been a stubborn child. I will bargain with the wayward, imprisoned by his pride. Have I lived? God's gonna ask. And I'll sing, forgiven, I will fly. I will bring love into life. I will learn from the question unanswered. Have I lived? God's gonna ask. Have I lived? God's gonna